I'll go ahead and start and introduce everybody. My name is Eric Miller. I am the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic Sales Manager for Niner Wine Estates. I was lucky enough to meet Jennifer when she was in a role at Sawgrass Country Club about 12 years ago. We successfully built a program much like she's doing there called Uncorked, still thriving to this day. We were lucky enough to have 18 of their members out to the winery late last year, to host them for lunch. So hopefully we'll do that with you guys at Boca one day. Some of you may know me from hosting a wine dinner there a couple of years ago with Andy. But I just wanted to say thank you all for being here. After I left the position where I met Jennifer Jolly, I was lucky enough to find a family and a team that I completely agree with their moral compass and the way we're doing things as far as sustainability and the way we address business in the wine world. So I was lucky to land a job a little over 3 years ago with the Niner family. So we're lucky to have the whole team here to go through the wines with you today. We have our winemaker from Bootjack Ranch in Hart Hill, Pat Moran, is going to be attending, and our Jefferson Ranch winemaker, Molly Bowman, is on as well. And then I'll introduce my boss, Tucker Spear, who is the National Sales Manager based in California. So I am your East Coast guy, and he is the West Coast guy, and I'll let him tell you a little bit about what we're doing, and we'll move forward. So please enjoy yourself.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today for Wine Wednesday. We've also got Andy Niner, who's going to talk a little bit about his vision of what we're going to be doing at Niner. First, I'm just going to give you an overview of where we're at, what we're doing. I think you should be able to see the map right now of Paso Robles and Edna Valley. Can everyone see that there? Yep, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so on the east side of Paso Robles, you have Bootjack Ranch. On the west side, you have Hart Hill. And then in Jesperson is in Edna Valley. So 3 distinctly different vineyards that have multiple microclimates and soil types that allow us to grow 20 different varieties across the 3 vineyard sites. We're family owned. That's where the name Niner comes from. Andy is now in charge of the winery. He took the business over from his parents in 2013. We're 100% SIP certified, which means sustainable in practice. All of our buildings are LEED certified, so we're really one of the leaders in environmental strategy when you're trying to do things the right way from the ground up. I'm going to share a little video here with you of Andy's parents talking about their vision when they took over and started building this incredible estate. So here's a quick snapshot of who we are and what we're doing.
Niner Wine Estates is a family-owned company. We make 100% estate-grown wines from Paso Robles and Edna Valley.
Niner wine means an estate bottled wine, as good as we can possibly make.
We were determined to make the best quality wine that could conceivably be done using our own grapes.
We farm 3 completely different vineyards. We have an uncompromising approach to quality in both the vineyard and the winery, and both are integrated in our approach. We started from the ground up with sustainability in mind and think long-term always about it. And we have an uncompromising approach to hospitality in both our tasting room and restaurant.
So I love seeing, the whole family there. Obviously, Andy's taken over, like I said before, but it's great to see Pam and Richard and hear them talk about the future of Niner. I'm going to introduce Andy Niner, and he can talk about where we're at now and where we're going in the future. So, Andy.
Thanks, Tucker, and thank you guys for having us. As Tucker mentioned, my name's Andy Niner. I'm the 2nd generation of the family. My dad started the company back in 2001. So I'll give you a brief overview of his history and how we got into this, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about where we're farming, and then talk to you a little bit about the future given what we're up to. and then I'll pass it off to Molly and Pat to talk about the wines. And I won't talk for long so you can get to the wines fast. Because it's 3 o'clock in Florida, and why not? So generally, my dad grew up in West Virginia. He's an East Coaster. He grew up farming, but not grape farming. They had about 10 acres. They had a couple animals, and they farmed for food. So he grew up son of a coal miner, and he spent his entire childhood getting up early in the morning, taking care of the animals, getting whatever needed to be done in the field done so that they could eat. I think that was a seminal period in his life where he just kind of felt like, number one, he didn't want to farm for his career because as a teenager, he wasn't fired up about that. But I think it was home for him. And as he got later in his career, he wanted to get back to it. So he ultimately put himself through college and business school and then was a small company investor his entire life. And about halfway through his career, he started looking at the wine industry because he loved wine. He wanted to get back to farming. And he started looking at it. And he looked at it for maybe 15 years and found the Central Coast in the process. And what he saw on the Central Coast of California was two things. First, he saw land that if you had a long-term view, you could grow grapes and make wine that rivaled some of the best areas both in California and the world. But from an industry perspective, it wasn't there yet. People just hadn't been focused in the Central Coast of California for long enough to figure it out. So if you had a long-term view, this was a good place to buy into. And then second, he found people. And he knew he needed good down-to-earth people. And in a lot of ways, and this is still true, for those of you who have been to Paso Robles and San Luis Obispo, it is a small town that's far enough away from the big cities where you don't have that pretension yet and you don't have the ego. And I think that's really important in farming, especially if you're into it for the long term. You just have to constantly kind of swallow your pride and bob and weave. So he found a bunch of people in this town that gave him great advice, number one, and number two, that he trusted, where he thought he could start a business and make a go of this. So he started that in 2001. He retired in 2013, and I've took over since. If you think and remember one thing about us, it's that we're all estates. So we're doing our own farming. We've been that way since the beginning, and that is a rewarding way to make wine, but it's also very hard, and one in which you probably aren't making good wine in the beginning. So you plant a grapevine, and about 3 to 4 years later, you get a grape you can actually use. And then about 2 years after that, you have a red wine you can sell. And that's the process, whether you like it or not. And every winery under the sun, 6 years into an investment, is going to try and convince you that that 6-year wine is the best thing that has ever been created, and you spend $100 for it, and it's, you know, God's gift to wine. And it's not, because it's the first time you farmed your land. It's the first time you tried to make wine from it. That is actually your first data point that is deeply flawed. That if you're humble, you go back and you say, okay, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? And you get in that virtuous cycle of figuring out your land and getting better at matching the winemaking. So we've been at that for about 20 years now. We're going into our 20th year. And I feel like we're still on the bell curve where we're getting better, but we're really figuring it out. And we're figuring out our vineyards. Pat and Molly are figuring it out in the winery. And it's an exciting time to be involved both in this winery and also in the region, because I think the region is also mapping to us as well. So I'll turn it back to Tucker, and Tucker, you can kind of pass it off to Molly.
Yeah, thank you. So today we're going to be talking about 4 wines. We've got our Chardonnay. Well, I'll let Molly jump into that. Then we'll be going into Pinot, onto Cabernet, and then finishing off with Fogcatcher. So Molly, it's your world with Chardonnay and Pinot and Edna Valley.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us again. I would like to start out by talking a little bit more about Edna Valley, because it is a pretty small growing region and you guys might not be super familiar with it. So as Tucker mentioned, it's one of our 3 vineyards. It is our cool climate site. So it's where we grow primarily Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. It's located 30 miles south of Paso Robles, just outside of the town of San Luis Obispo. So 30 miles might not seem like a big distance when you talk about California, but it is a really, really different growing region. And what makes it different is that it's on the coastal side of the mountain range that runs up and down the coast. So Paso Robles is on the inland side, Edna Valley is on the coastal side, right next to the Pacific Ocean. So yeah, Tucker, thanks for pulling up that map. So you can see there right around that compass rose is where the ocean kind of opens up into Edna Valley. There's a little bay there, Morro Bay. And then there's no barrier between Edna Valley, which is where San Luis Obispo and Jesperson is on the map, and the ocean influence. And our ocean temperature, you know, the Pacific Ocean is of course huge, and it's got a temperature that's usually in the high 50s, low 60s. So we get a lot of ocean influence off of the Pacific Ocean every day. And that comes in the form of fog at night and in the mornings. So that kind of slows down the ripening temperature, preserves that nice fresh acidity in the grapes, and lets them ripen really slowly. And then in the mid-morning, we get nice winds that come in off of the ocean, blow out that fog, and then we have really nice sunshine, warm temperatures during the daytime. But warm temperatures, I'm talking about mid-70s to low 80s, typically in the summer, which is about 20 to 25 degrees cooler than Paso Robles just to our north. So really very big difference when you're talking about the entire growing season, and 20 degrees difference per day. So it's a really great region for those cool climate varieties like the Pinot Noir and Chardonnay that you guys are going to taste today. So first, I'll talk about the 2017 Chardonnay that you guys have. So again, this is about, it's about 25% of what we grow at Jesperson Ranch. The vineyard itself is about 80 acres, and we grow about 20 acres of Chardonnay. And what I really like about the Chardonnay is that it reflects that kind of coastal influence. The flavors tend to be more in the citrus and the apple and pear realm versus a tropical kind of Chardonnay that you get in a warmer climate. So what I want to do is preserve that really fresh fruit. And then what I could do as a winemaker is kind of play around with textures. And what I want to do is accentuate the acidity and that nice brightness that goes so well with food, but kind of complement that by having a creamy richness in the wine. So this wine is 100% barrel fermented. The juice is pressed straight into the barrels, fermented in the barrels with a mix of native yeasts, which lend a little bit more richness, and some inoculated commercial yeast, which lends some different flavors to it. And then that wine is fermented in the barrel, aged in the barrel. During that time, I do some lees stirring to again kind of get that mouthfeel, that texture, and that richness in the wine. And then it's bottled after about 10 months. So it's bottled before the next vintage, and then it's kind of retains that nice fresh vibrancy in the wine. It is a really good food wine. I think it's a little bit lighter, more elegant style of Chardonnay if somebody wants something that isn't too heavy and too rich and too oaky. The oak percentage on this is about 35% new French oak. I use all French oak, about a third new, and then the rest would be 1, 2, or 3 year old oak. So yeah, that's the 2017 Chardonnay.
Great, and now we're going to be moving on to the Pinot, 2017 Pinot.
Okay, 2017 Pinot, again from Jesperson Ranch. It's about half of what we grow at Jesperson Ranch. We have only one vineyard that we're pulling Pinot Noir from. So for me, what I'm really looking toward is having a lot of variety in the different Pinot Noir fermentations that I do from this vineyard. So we have about 7 different clones. So each of those have a different characteristics. Some are more fruity, some are more spicy, some are more tannic. So pull from all 7 of the clones, ferment them separately. And, I think of the 30 different acres we have at Jesperson Ranch, I usually end up with about 30 different fermenters. And each of those gets a little bit different treatment. So maybe native yeast versus a commercial yeast, or some whole cluster, or some stems that I'll dry out in the sunshine and then add back into the fermenter. Some are just destemmed. So really what I want to get is a big variety of ingredients that I can put together then in that final blend. Again, it's about a third new French oak on this wine, and it's aged again for about 10 months in barrel, and then bottled just before the next harvest. Great. So I think the characteristics that you'll find in this Pinot Noir are kind of a mix of red and black fruits. There's a little bit of earthiness, and there's a little bit of structure to it, and a little bit of spice. The spice comes, it's interesting because it comes mostly from the vineyard. We have this kind of characteristic black pepper spice, and then the kind of the baking spice that you get in this wine also is more from the barrel influence.
Thanks so much. I do like to point out that this was in the top 100 in the Wine Enthusiast last year. So always fun to talk about the scores, but we always talk more about the quality anyways. So thanks, Molly. Now we're going to move on to Pat, and he can talk about Paso Robles, Hart Hill, Boot Shack Ranch, and then Cabernet.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tucker. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to reassure you that we're all safe and doing well here in Paso Robles. We've been in our quarantine with our barrels here, as you can see behind me. And we're now using cognac to sanitize things because like your fingers are done, which is quite nice. But you know, anything we can do here at Niner Wine Estates. So my name is Patrick Moran. I'm the winemaker here, one of the winemakers with Molly at Niner Wine Estates. I handle all the vineyards. So I'm, as you would term in California, there's a term of, I'm from the valley. I handle these warmer climate regions, and our two vineyards, Boot Shack Ranch and Hart Hill Vineyards, are examples of a warmer climate vineyard. They're perfect conditions for your Bordeaux and Rhone varieties. And as demonstrated, you can always look at the pedigree, you know, who surrounds us. And we certainly have the neighbors that have accentuated what the potential is for this region and this site in particular. So the two vineyards, as Molly described, are going to be in Paso Robles, one on the east side of Paso Robles, one on the west side of Paso Robles. Our east side vineyard is going to be a little warmer in its climate. On a 1 to 5 scale, it's going to be on a high 3.8, let's say. The west side vineyard, or Hart Hill Vineyard, is on a 1 to 5 scale would be a 3, just a high 2, low 3. So the distance that separates these two vineyards is only 13 miles, but there's a dramatic swing in temperature. And you can see that through our 3 vineyard sites, what a difference just 30 miles can make in this region when you have the Pacific Ocean that is sitting around 54 degrees right now. And I know Eric can appreciate something like that, and you have to wear wetsuits and hoods and everything else. So, but that is our giant air conditioner here. And if you're in close proximity to that ocean, you have a very cool atmosphere. And as you move inland, things really start to warm up. So that's what distinguishes the climactic features here. As far as, you know, soil and terrain and topography, also is very conducive for both your Bordeaux and Rhone varieties. So we have these sloping hills. At Hart Hill, the hills are much steeper and high pitch. You know, you get quite a workout climbing these vineyard roads through the harvest season, tasting these grapes. At Boot Shack, it's more soft rolling hills, and that's going to be a warmer, sandier soil out there at Boot Shack Ranch. So what's really exciting, I think, and Andy touched on a few of these items, but from my perspective, having Molly and myself, both with over 20 years of experience in the wine industry, traveled through Santa Barbara County and Sonoma and San Luis Obispo, we're able to kind of lend our experiences to this newfound region. And what's got us excited is the potential here. You know, you see the upward potential, and it's just honing the site, the farming practices, and what is conducive to making world-class wine. So that's what we're in the pursuit of. And since I'm speaking to a country club, you know, it's like playing the long game. You know, you play this golf game that, you know, you're calculating long-term advantages as opposed to short-term gains. And so that's what we're really challenged with. So, but we're excited. We're developing. We're growing. We're expanding, and really excited for the future. So. Yeah, so we're going to get started. Our first wine here, we have 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon. And I think if I were to describe our Cabernet Sauvignon and the method in which we approach it, is it never follows a straight path. So each vintage, as we've gotten to know these vineyards and know their subtleties and their qualities, we try and adapt to those qualities based upon the year. So we may have a year that's a little wetter or a little bit warmer. And so we're going to handle these individual blocks of Cabernet Sauvignon, which we have, gosh, over 20 of them, in a subtle way, as you would know an old friend. And so basically, when we bring these grapes in, we're going to sort them. We're going to kind of redefine what is going to wind up in that fermenter. And we're really after only nice berries. So we're going to take it through a system that's going to really clean up this process, a semi-automatic sorting table, hand sorting. We're going to pick these grapes at night to preserve the quality and freshness, because our nights are very cool, usually in the 50-degree mark, even during the summertime. So we're going to pick those at night. We're going to bring them into the winery, and we're going to process those. But having spent 10 years now, just over 10 years here with Niner, I've gotten to know these blocks and really understand the qualities. And so we sort of lean on those qualities a little bit to encourage, you know, a fruit expression, let's say, or something that has robust tannins. We're going to develop that and enhance that. So this is a combination of both our Hart Hill vineyard and our Buchach vineyard, our 2017 Cabernet. We aged this for just over, this was about 20 months in 2017, and then bottled. But we really take, I'm sorry, we took a little more time in 17. Our traditional aging process is about 20 months, but this was a good example of being, you know, adaptive to what the vintage brought. And that wine needed a little extra time. And so we actually stuck this back in the barrel at 20 months, let it sit and think about itself for another 6 months or so before we went to bottle. And that added the nice, soft, little subtle roundness to the tannin profile that we were looking for. So as you can see, Tucker brought up a picture of Buchach Ranch and our various blocks here of Cabernet. And again, if you're after quality, you want to capture kind of the essence of what an individual block can contain. And that is slope and hillside aspect and row orientation, along with clone and rootstock selection. So you kind of combine a myriad of factors to try and create an ideal environment for each individual block. And then think of it as cooking. You know, you want to bring different ingredients to the table, and that will allow you, when you're in the blending process, to create a wine that has perfect balance. So next up, we have a little picture of Hart Hill Vineyard here on the west side of Paso Robles. More hilly, more rain, rockier soils. This is going to be a place where you're going to get really deep concentrated fruit. So we're going to have fruit qualities that lend themselves to the darker fruit characteristics. So blackberry and dark plum and dark cherry and things of that nature. And they're going to bring a robust tannin profile as well. So you combine that with kind of a red cherry fruit expression from the east side. And now you have this nice blend of both tannin length, fruit expression, and body. So, and as we're working now, we have, you know, I'm in the process right now of blending one of our wines. We just did a preliminary debarreling. This is kind of the fun part of winemaking, to get a snapshot of what this wine is going to look like, even though we're going to bottle it in about 4 months' time. We're working on this project. That's what's in my glass now, is a wine that we're composing to understand what the qualities are at this point. Then we're going to go back into barrel, let it kind of harmonize a little bit, and then finally bottle that in about 4 months' time.
Patrick, something that I thought was pretty interesting about you is that you're not only a winemaker, but you're also a homeschool teacher, correct?
Oh, many hats. Wearing my dad's old hat today and teacher hat yesterday.
Well, tell about your compost and your homeschooling with Claire.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Here we are last Friday. So one thing that's passionate to me and close to my heart is the sustainable features, both from the soil perspective and everything, all of our processes. So what we do each year is we take all of our kind of roughage, all the pumice and the seeds and the stems and all the waste material that comes off our vineyard, and we thermally compost this. So we get the right amounts. It's actually a pretty interesting science. You try and get the right balance of nitrogen and woody material and whatnot, and then you thermally compost this stuff. So it's cooking at about 130 to 165 degrees for 15 days. And so we thermally compost this stuff. I've cooked eggs in these compost piles. It's pretty exciting stuff for me. And then lastly, we take the compost and we make a tea out of it. So we extract the organisms and some of the nutrients out of that compost, and then we reapply that to the vineyard. And that becomes more or less the inoculum for activity and soil biodiversity and things like that. And this is us qualifying the tea by looking at a microscope and seeing, counting the number of organisms and the types of organisms. And it's a whole underwater sea of creatures and animals and bacteria and fungi and all that sort of stuff. So that's a fun way. Got to teach the kids something other than sailing knots and surfing, you know. So.
And so the last wine we're going to talk about is Fogcatcher.
Yeah, so Fogcatcher is kind of the pinnacle of our Paso Robles expression. So this is something that is truly the heart of quality in Paso Robles. And so this is composed of roughly 14 barrels selected from individual lots and individual barrels, composed at about 14 months and then allowed to age for about 28 months. The blend changes every year slightly. We based this on Cabernet Franc. Traditionally, it's Cabernet Sauvignon, Malbec, Petit Verdot, Carmenere in certain years. But we're really looking for something that is both age-worthy, that has dimension, that has a robust tannin and an evolution to it. And so, for example, we've made this wine since 2004, and we had some 2007 last year that was incredible. So, this is an evolution of wine from the Paso Robles in kind of the apex of quality. It's something we're really excited of. It is a moving target each year, you know, the qualities that come off of the different vineyards, but we're always excited to see this wine evolve.
And also extremely limited. It's something where we make less than 1,000 cases every year. It's the best of the best off the property. Half that goes to our wine club, and then we sprinkle a couple hundred cases around the country. So it's a very special wine for us. We're out of the 2016. The 2017 will be released in October.
Yeah, and we just bottled the 2017 in February. So it's we're typically sold out within a few months of release. So it's an exciting wine. It's something that you could certainly cellar for a long period of time and enjoy over the next decade.
So just a little note I'll inject here for the Florida people. This state is one of the last states with that vintage of Fogcatcher available, as well as the number 73 Wine Enthusiast Pinot Noir. So if you are into wines that are hard to get, these are two of the vintages that are only available in the state of Florida currently. So grab them up now because it won't be long. So enjoy.
Great. Well, if there's any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of the team members that you see here. Molly, Patrick, Andy, they're always at the winery, but always available. The restaurant at Niner Wine Estates is known as one of the top winery restaurants in the country. So as of next week, June 10th, that will be open again. We invite everyone to come out and see that and experience Niner Wine Estates. Anything else from the rest of the team?
Oh yeah, at this point we could open it up to the question and answer from the club. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask any one of us.
Oh gosh, they all want to come to the restaurant now. They're looking for airline tickets.
Yeah.
Good questions, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Jen, did you notice my shirt? Boca Grove. I even wore my golf shirt for you guys today. So we appreciate you having us. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them now. If not, and something comes up later, Jen has both Tucker and I's email addresses and phone numbers. She can reach out for us directly and we can answer the questions. And then hopefully, as our state opens up more and more, I'll be coming down to the club to see you guys and we put the event together. And as Tucker said, we'd love to have you out to the #1 winery restaurant in the country as soon as we open up next week. And if you can't come to us, we'll come to you. So just let us know. And we appreciate you all coming today.